We're happy to have Richard Groves in our studio today. And he and his wife, his late wife, Mary, started the Sacred Art of Living Center in 1997. And he was a chaplain for 25 years, and Richard speaks 9 languages, and he has degrees in theology, ethics, world religion, and law as well. And over 16,000 students throughout North America, Europe, Africa, and Asia have graduated from these courses taught by the Groves. I'm interested to hear about Richard's latest book, The American Book of Living and Dying, Lessons in Healing Spiritual Pain. This book has been actually widely compared to the groundbreaking work of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and translated into Spanish and Japanese. Welcome to the studio, Richard.
Good morning, Victoria. Thank you.
I'm so excited that you have some special events coming up here. And first of all, why don't you tell us what the Sacred Art of Living Center is and why you started it?
It really began here in Bend in Central Oregon 15 years ago. In fact, we're celebrating our 15th anniversary here in just a couple of weeks. We have an event at the River House in Bend on March 5th to celebrate that 15th anniversary, and just want to welcome the community to come and celebrate with us. And the work we've been doing really began a lot of years ago from being involved with hospice and people at the end of life. But the Sacred Art of Living dimension of our work began to expand because we realized that so many of the great lessons and teachings and poignant moments that people experienced at the end of life were also being experienced throughout all the stages of living. Mm-hmm. And so we really have two sides of the same coin, we say. The Sacred Art of Living and Sacred Art of Dying are really just part of the circle of life.
And I understand the party you're having March 5th at the River House, is it?
Yes, it is.
Is going to be a Celtic party, and some of my favorite music. We've got fiddlers and bagpipes and dancers, and so it featuring a Scottish heart and the high desert Scottish and Celtic country dancers. So this should be a wonderful event, and I'm going to come, and it'll be a lot of fun. But I think what's important about your work, I remember meeting you, 1998 at Holy Family Church in Pasadena. I took your class because at the time I was the director of the Immaculate Heart residence in Los Angeles. And it was very helpful to me. And I was so impressed how you brought many different traditions in. You had Hebrew and all different religions that you brought in. And would you go into that a little bit more?
Well, I think that came out of
from your travels.
Yeah, out of travels and just working with hospice. You know, one of the gifts of that movement is that communities serve people in the last stages of life, regardless of what background they come from. And so, here in Central Oregon, we also have people that represent all different spiritual backgrounds and cultural traditions. And so part of being a good hospice worker is being sensitive to those differences, but underneath them all, really finding the common ground. And so that's been a passion of this work from the beginning, was to expose people to celebrate their own traditions, but in the process also to maybe learn something about how other people deal with important changes in life.
I think that's so essential in the small world that we live in now. You know, it used to be little insular communities, but now the world is very small, and what happens in Egypt and everywhere really affects us. And so it behooves us to understand. I have a favorite saying of Albert Einstein. He said, "We can't wage peace through war. We can only wage peace through understanding." And so what you're doing and all that is really important too. Tell me about the 9 languages. What are the 9 languages, and how did you come to learn them?
Well, part of that was my own personal journey. I was lucky to really be involved in a remarkable education study process for a number of years in my life overseas, and that took me to study ancient languages. It was really the first part of that work.
So Greek and
and Latin and Hebrew and Aramaic and languages that sometimes are called dead languages. People don't speak them necessarily, all those languages today in the world, but then in addition, being able to study and first study and then teach in Spain and Italy and German-speaking countries gave me the ability to also connect with modern languages. And I guess I just have been lucky in my life. I have that chip in my brain somehow that understands language.
Oh, I understand totally, because my background is I've lived in, because my dad's a retired colonel in the Air Force, and we lived in Germany, Turkey, Mississippi, Maine. So languages are like music to me, and it's although to tell you the one I have the most trouble with that I'm trying now is Gaelic. I just the how it's spelled and how it's pronounced, I just don't get it. And I understand you speak Irish Gaelic.
Well, I don't speak
not the
it
Scottish Gaelic. Or
well, I don't speak it by any means. It's my latest interest, and we've been doing a lot of work in Ireland and in the Celtic countries. And so when you really get close to a tradition, the language is often the vehicle that embodies more than just the words, but also the kind of the soul and the heart of the tradition.
That's so interesting. I really get that. I even think that about American dialects. Like I'm from Vermont, and people in North speak fast and so forth. And I've lived in, Florida and Mississippi for a long time, and people there speak very slow. Well, it's hot. It takes too much effort to speak fast. And, and so I think the things about the different dialects, even in England, the different dialects, the different cultures and the different temperatures, I think, have an effect. Well, so that's interesting. So you studied I remember in the workshop that I went to with you that you actually studied the ancient languages, and so that you were able to translate for yourself without having to have someone else do translations for you. The ancient manuscripts.
Yeah, that was part of it. I think originally I was sort of headed to be a teacher of those languages, of that tradition. And then eventually, when I returned to this country, I found that I wanted to put some of that to use. And so I was ordained a Catholic priest, and for quite a number of years worked in different kinds of ministry with people who came from different cultures and backgrounds, and I found that the languages were really helpful to me. I was helping out for some years as an Air Force chaplain, and often I was stationed on bases in Alaska and really distant parts of the world where people didn't have access to rabbis and priests and ministers. And so my job was to try to translate not just the language, but also bring some part of the spiritual comfort of someone's culture and tradition to them during times of suffering and at the end of life.
Yeah, just to hear a familiar word in your own language, especially in those crucial times, would be really essential. What a blessing that is.